All right, let's get into some climate change news. Osama number 5 says monsoon floods, landslides ravaged South Asia. At least 221 dead. More than 1 million people have been marooned in Nepal, Bangladesh, and India as overflowing rivers wreak havoc. Thank you for the update, Osama. Yeah, monsoon slammed South Asia, displacing millions in Bangladesh and India. I don't know if I'm going to be able to see this, but flooding in Bangladesh, Bhutan, India, Myanmar, and Nepal has killed scores of people, destroyed homes and structures, drowned entire villages, and forced many to crouch on rooftops hoping for rescue. In recent years, the monsoon season has increasingly brought cyclones and devastating floods, causing the internal displacement of millions of people in low-lying areas, particularly Bangladesh. Scientists say global warming has played a role by affecting rainfall patterns across the subcontinent. And they are right to say this. Instead of more constant but less intense rains, warming has increased the frequency of extreme rains, which are more likely to cause flooding. That is happening all over the globe. All over the planet, we're seeing 500-year floods, 1,000-year floods, every single year. This is now becoming a common occurrence. Last year, at least 600 people were killed, more than 25 million affected by flooding because of the torrential monsoon rains in Bangladesh, India, Myanmar, and Nepal. According to the United Nations, and in 2017, more than 1,000 people died in floods across South Asia. Again, this is ongoing. China, Japan, all of the countries of East and South Asia are being hit by massive flooding. And so is Canada. Alberta farmers bracing for worst harvest in 18 years. The damage is done. This is from July 14th. Farmers in parts of Alberta say their crops are underwater and are bracing for a devastating harvest. It has been so wet, many fields look more like lakes. John Gwelly, a farmer in Westlock County, said even his wheat and canola crops, if they dry out, it's too late. The damage is done, Gwelly said. There's no turning back for this year unless you've got a time machine or magic fairy dust. Gwelly's wheat crop would normally be waist high by mid-July. Now he said parts are dead or spindly, like something that's been overwatered in a flower pot. It's so bad, Gwelly said, his only hope of making any money this year is by cashing in on crop insurance. He is hoping for hail. We've got good hail insurance, and that would be economically the best thing for me right now. Gwelly, who is also chair of the Alberta Canola Producers Commission, said unfortunately the hail that has landed on crops were ones that were actually doing well. Just east of Innisfail, farmers watched helpless as a massive hailstorm tore through the area on Sunday, July 12th. You can see some crops here before. After some hail destroyed these canola field. We've lost 1,400 out of 1,600 acres. These are people that are growing canola. The crop is insured, so it will be all right. Our biggest concern is the pasture and feed for the cows. So massive crop damage going on in Canada, and a few other people have been alerting me to other crop damage news. It's in Alberta, no representation. I've been hearing reports of other crop damage news in other parts of the globe. Jay Ackert, that's funny. Will it affect food supplies this year? I don't know. Let's move on. This is from Ben C. Seeing as it's no longer controversial for scientists to wonder if sea level rise will begin to cause havoc by 2035 and then wreck most of the world's major cities before our kids hit retirement age, might now be a good time for the media to lead with what we're going to do about it. Right. Why aren't they talking about the fact that we're going to be seeing some major extreme climate events and sea level rise in the next 10 to 20 years? Again, going on, he says, scientists fear the collapse of the Thwaites Glacier has already begun. The world will undergo devastating sea level rise within mere decades, not centuries. Hold on one second. And a list of cities who will be underwater by 2035. We're talking about 15 years, folks. Bangkok, Manila, Mumbai, Ho Chi Minh City, Jakarta, Alexandria, Fiji, Chittagong, Kiribati, Basra, the Maldives, Vancouver, Skegness, Seychelles, La Rochelle, Surabaya, Georgetown, Amsterdam, Shanghai. The collapse of the vulnerable Thwaites Glacier in West Antarctica would release other major bodies of ice which could raise sea levels by 2 to 3 meters. The ramifications for many countries, including most of the world's coastal cities, would be catastrophic. Again, this is happening way faster than expected or predicted. And it's happening way faster than people want to acknowledge. The question is, when will we acknowledge it? As Ben C. brought up in his tweet, might this be a good time for major news corporations to say, hey, there's this thing that's happening. It's not good at all. So maybe we should start planning for this. Scott Andrews, thank you for the super chat. And he says, crop damage equals we are so effed. Osama says, Nebraska ag producers see damage to crops after severe weather. Well, if you remember last year, we had massive, major, historic, again, once every 500 or 1,000 year floods happening all through the Midwest and up into Canada last year. And that affected a lot of crop production and cultivation and harvesting. And so is that going to compound with the agriculture situation this year? Are we going to start to see food shortages or some kind of, hit to stocks, food stocks over the world, or even nationwide? I don't know. Osama says vegetable prices rise up to 200%. Trade blame crop damage and fuel price. This is from Business Standard. Gene says, Kevin, remember the chatters have guessed what the news will be in 6 months, 6 weeks ago, right? That's right. Thank you for reminding me of that. Windstorms and drought hitting crops this year. Jay Ackert says, hope everyone is stocking up and or gardening. Yes, I'm getting my gardening on as fast as I can. Let's move on. Court slaps down Trump administration's rollback of methane rule. So another, small tidbit of good news. This is from July 16th. Late yesterday, in a resounding victory for taxpayers, public health, and the environment, the U.S. District Court for the Northern District of California invalidated the Trump administration's rollback of the Obama-era waste prevention rule. This ruling means that the waste prevention rule goes back in effect in 90 days, and the oil and gas industry will have to comply with the rule's requirements to prevent waste of gas on federal lands. So they tried to roll this back right at the beginning of the pandemic, under the cover of, chaos, all kinds of things going on, people wondering what the future was going to look like. And they're like, let's just roll back these rules because business. Enacted in 2016, the waste prevention rule was designed to protect the public from wasteful venting, flaring, and leaking of gas from drilling operations on federal and tribal lands. In 2018, the Trump administration's Bureau of Land Management rescinded the rule. Oh, this is earlier. I thought they did this a few months ago. I stand corrected, or I sit corrected. They did something just right when the pandemic started. I thought this was it. Maybe it's something else, or of course it is something else. In 2018, the Trump administration's Bureau of Land Management rescinded the rule to give oil and gas companies operating on public lands a free pass for air and climate pollution from wasted gas. So, the courts at least are fighting back against these ridiculous stripping of regulations. The little that we have in place to protect the environment, very, very little do we have in place to protect the environment, and Trump is trying to nullify everything that's in place. We're barely protecting the environment as it is, protecting people as it is, and he's just like, nope, we don't need any of it. We don't want any of it. Basil Peterson, I'm eating a garden salad right now. Excellent. Good on you. Let's move on to this story. The story I wanted to cover today. This is out of BBC News from yesterday. Summers could become too hot for humans. So again, this is one of those unfortunate use of the word could. They're kind of trying to warn you, but making it seem like maybe it will, maybe it won't. When actually this headline should read, summers will become too hot for humans. It just depends on when that will be. Millions of people around the world could be exposed to dangerous levels of heat stress, a dangerous condition which can cause organs to shut down. Can you say wet bulb temperature? Many live in developing countries and do jobs that expose them to potentially life-threatening conditions. These include being out in the open on farms and building sites, or indoors in factories and hospitals. Farmers in South America are already dying from extreme complications of dehydration and heat stress. This is, I don't know if anybody has been following this story, but this is a serious problem for farmers in South America and near the equator, where it's quite a bit warmer and more humid. Farmers are having like liver failure and all kinds of organ failure due to dehydration, and it's affecting a lot of people. Global warming will increase the chances of summer conditions that may be too hot for humans to work in. When we caught up with Dr. Jimmy Lee, his goggles were steamed up and there was sweat trickling off his neck. An emergency medic, he's laboring in the stifling heat of tropical Singapore to care for patients with COVID-19. There's no air conditioning, a deliberate choice, to prevent the virus from being blown around, and he notices that he and his colleagues become more irritable and more short with each other. And his personal protective equipment, essential for avoiding infection, makes things worse by creating a sweltering microclimate under the multiple layers of plastic. Ew. It really hits you when you first go in there, said Dr. Lee, and it's really uncomfortable over a whole shift of 8 hours. It affects morale. One danger he realizes is that overheating can slow down their ability to do something that's vital for medical staff, make quick decisions. Another is that they may ignore the warning signs of what's called heat stress, such as faintness and nausea, and keep on working until they collapse. What is heat stress? It's when the body is unable to cool down properly, so its core temperature keeps rising to dangerous levels and key organs can shut down. It happens when the main technique for getting rid of excess heat, the evaporation of sweat on the skin, can't take place because the air is too humid. And as Dr. Lee and other medics have found, the impermeable layers of personal protection equipment designed to keep the virus out have the effect of preventing the sweat from evaporating. According to Dr. Rebecca Lucas, who researches physiology at the University of Birmingham, the symptoms can escalate from fainting and disorientation to cramps and failure of the guts and kidneys. It can become very serious as you overheat. Oh, kidney failure, not liver failure. Sorry, I need to correct myself when I was talking about the South American farmers. It can become very serious as you overheat and in all areas of the body. How can we spot it? A system known as the wet bulb globe temperature measures not only heat but also humidity and other factors to give a more realistic description of conditions. Back in the 1950s, the U.S. military used it to work out guidelines for keeping soldiers safe. When the wet bulb global temperature reaches 29°C, for example, the recommendation is to suspend exercise for anyone not acclimatized. Yet that's the level Dr. Lee and his colleagues are regularly experiencing at Singapore's Ng Teng Fong General Hospital. And at the top of the scale, when the WBGT registers 32°C, the U.S. says strenuous training should stop because the risk becomes extreme. And here you go. Here's the global mean temperature change from pre-industrial levels. They're letting on that we are here about some say 1.2, some say a little over 1. So, and that's the baseline is 1850. That's what they've chosen for this one. Levels that high have recently been recorded inside hospitals in Chennai, in India, by Professor Vidya Venugopal of the Sri Ramachandra University. She's also found workers in a salt pan enduring wet bulb temperature that climbs during the day to 33°C, at which point they have to seek shelter. And in a steel plant, a ferocious level of 41.7°C was recorded. Jesus. The workers being among the most vulnerable to what she calls the huge heat. If this happens day in, day out, people become dehydrated. There are cardiovascular issues, kidney stones, heat exhaustion. Professor Venugopal says, what impact will climate change have? Well, all the impact. That's the impact climate change will have, all of it. As global temperatures rise, more intense humidity is likely as well, which means more people will be exposed to more days with that hazardous combination of heat and moisture. Professor Richard Betts of the UK Met Office has run computer models which suggest that the number of days with wet bulb global temperature above 32°C are set to increase, depending on whether greenhouse gas emissions are cut. And he spells out the risks. So depending on whether greenhouse gas emissions are cut. No sign of cutting those yet. And he spells out the risks for millions of people already having to work in the challenging combination of extreme heat and high humidity. We humans evolved to live in a particular range of temperatures, so it's clear that if we continue to cause temperatures to rise worldwide, sooner or later the hottest parts of the world could start to see conditions that are simply too hot for us. Another study published earlier this year warned that heat stress could affect as many as 1.2 billion people around the world by 2100. Why are they using that date? Jesus. This is really malfeasance on the biggest level. Anyways, 4 times more than now. What solutions are there? According to Dr. Jimmy Lee, it's not rocket science. People need to drink plenty of fluid before they start work, take regular breaks, and then drink again when they rest, or start digging holes and living underground. I just added that. That's me. He didn't say that. His hospital has started laying on slushy, semi-frozen drinks to help the staff cool down. But he admits that avoiding heat stress is easier said than done. For him and his colleagues, going for rests involves the laborious process of changing out of PPE and then back into a new set of equipment. There's a practical problem as well. Some people do not want to drink so they can avoid having to go to the toilet, he says. And there's a professional desire to keep working whatever the difficulty so as not to let colleagues and patients down at a time of crisis. People who are highly motivated can actually be at the greatest risk of heat injury, said Dr. Jason Lee, an associate professor in physiology at the National University of Singapore. He's a leading member of a group specializing in the dangers of excessive heat, the Global Heat Health Information Network, which has drawn up guidelines to help medics cope with COVID-19. Spearheaded by the World Health Organization, the World Meteorological Organization, and the U.S. Weather and Climate Agency, NOAA. 2019, here's another graph for you. 2019 concludes warmest decade on record. And again, they're telling us that we're at 1.05 C, which is, most people would say, or not most people, many people would say that's false. That we're, again, the WMO, World Meteorological Organization, is trying to figure out how to tell you, guys, we're up here. Sorry, guys, we messed up. Oopsie. Dr. Lee says that as well as measures like rest and fluids and shade for outdoor workers, a key strategy for resisting heat stress is to be fit. Well, it can't hurt. By keeping yourself aerobically fit, I was going to say acrobatically fit, but that's good too. You know, acrobatics. The fittest people I know are acrobats. You're also increasing your heat tolerance, and there are so many other benefits too. And he sees the challenge for medics sweating inside their PPE as they deal with COVID-19 as almost like a full dress rehearsal for future rises in temperature that are going to happen much, much sooner than 2100, guys. Please, please, please no. Please beware. This climate change, as opposed to the other climate change, will be a bigger monster, and we really need a coordinated effort across nations to prepare for what is to come. If not, he says, there'll be a price to be paid. Dun, dun, dun. So there you go. Scott Andrews, 1.05 C, yeah, total BS. Well, like I said, I've been saying this all week. They're trying to figure out a way to tell people, like, yeah, no, not so much with the 1C. They're trying to let people in on the truth of the matter, that we're actually at 1.5 or more. But they're trying to figure out a way to do it. Ease people into the idea, right? In the next 4 years, we could see 1.5 C. Well, how do we get to 1.5 from 1.05 so fast? How did that happen? I wonder. Cindy Seeley says ghost peppers. What is that in reference to? Or are you saying that helps with the heat? No. Oh, Osama's talking about peppers. I'm actually growing a few peppers from some of Osama's seeds. And I have more, which I'm going to plant. Poppy Davis, trickle down truth, indeed. Yes, TCR Galaxy in 2035, when we're at 3C, it ain't going to matter much what the baseline was, right? It's, I think it's going to become clear to people with, more and more extreme weather events and probably more extreme temperature events and more extreme ice loss and more extreme sea level rise and all of this stuff, that it's going to become so obvious to people that things aren't the same anymore, right? You can't keep telling people every single year that we're still at 1C. How long are you going to tell people that for? 10 years? 10 years in a row, we've been at 1C. Okay. Wow, this is pretty bad. 1C and all this stuff is happening? Whoa. Wow. That's going to really suck when we get to 1.5. Oh, wait, hold on. We're at 1.5. Oh, hold on. We're at 2. Hey, guys, remember to like, share, and subscribe. And you can support the channel. The links below, PayPal, Patreon, Square. Also, if you'd like to watch the live streams, you can watch the live streams on my Patreon channel. You can subscribe for as little as $1. So hopefully I will see you over there.